everyone, this is Caroline from Echo Consulting, and thanks for joining. We're going to take a look at Power BI today. This is continuing some of the content from previous videos that I made. We've brought in some data from Smartsheet into Power BI, and if you'd like to see how to do that, just check out a couple of the previous videos on our Echo channel. But today we're going to focus on additional things you can do in Power BI with filters and slicers. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between filtering in Power BI versus the filtering in Smartsheet and what you can still do between the two of them. There's a lot of options. So let's jump right in. This data set is the same one that I've used for previous visuals, dummy data, other than the consultant names. These are the names of my colleagues who work at Echo Consulting, who are all wonderful. But I started with just a really simple table, drawing on my Smartsheet data set. Let me actually show you that Smartsheet data set real quick, just so you have a sense where this data is coming from. It looks like this. It's a project intake list with the names of projects, the names of consultants that are assigned to those projects, and a bunch of other data related to those projects. We've pulled all of that into Power BI, and that shows up here on the right-hand side. I can see I've got this overall table with my demo project intake list. I've got a second table here that I've pulled in from another source. And for this source, I've got a number of columns, all the columns from that data set that I can use to make the visuals in Power BI. The first one I've done is just a simple table visual. I put the name of my consultants and then brought in this assigned to column. I happen to know, because I know this data set well, that this is showing the emails for those consultants. So I'm going to click on my bar here and rename for this visual this to email to be a little more clear in my table. So now I've got a nice table there. For today, I'd like to look more at the estimated hours that I have for projects. I know that's in this data set, and I'd like to see what I can show about those. But before I get to that, actually, there is one thing I noticed. I probably touched on this in a previous video, but I'll show it again. I have some blanks here in my table. I'm assuming this happens a lot. You've got a data set that has blanks or has some data errors, and you can go clean those up later, but for now I just want to remove them from my visual. So clicking on my visual here, opening the filter pane. This is the first type of filter that's very easy to do in Power BI. I'm just filtering this visual. So I've got basic filtering on my consultant column. I'm going to select them all, but then just unselect the blanks. And it's just going to remove the blanks so I don't see those anymore. Once I've set a filter, I like to lock it just as a cue, to myself that that's been done. It will also lock the visual if you are sharing the dashboard in online Power BI. Lock the filter. We'll talk about that more in just a second. Okay. So I've got my nice consultant email filter with the blanks taken out. Now I would like to do a visual showing the number of estimated hours per consultant. So I'll do my trusty pie chart, bring that over here, and from my data set I'm going to add the legend I know is going to be the consultant names, so I'll put that on the legend, and then project estimate is my column. It's going to automatically show the estimated hours per consultant. So I've got my things that I need to adjust now on this visual. I'll make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to change the slices a bit on the label to show just the percent of the total. You can see that visual adjusting behind. And I'm going to make the title, which is under the General tab, just clean this up a little bit, Project Estimate by Consultant, and make the background color gray. So now I've got a nice, neat visual here. I still have my consultant blank showing, so I'm going to add in the same visual that I did before, where I select all on the consultant column, take out the blanks. And so now I've got my pie chart and my list showing information about my consultants and the proportion of hours they have overall on their projects with clients. I'd like to add another bar chart actually related to clients now. So this is great, shows my proportion of hours internally, but I want to see externally how this is distributed among clients. Now, a nice thing is that I can actually copy this whole visual and change it up. I like the way this is formatted. It's got my nice title up here with the gray. So I'm just going to do Control-C, Control-V on my keyboard, get this second visual. It keeps my format, and then I can change very easily everything else about it, which is cool. So I don't want a pie chart anymore. I would like a bar chart. So I change it to a bar chart first. I don't want to show my consultants. I do want to show my project estimate, but rather than the consultant on my y-axis, I'll take that out. I would like to show my client. So that's a nice easy way to cut down on your time a little bit creating visuals, is to copy and paste a visual that you already have the formatting. It also brought over the filters that we wanted. It kept filtering out consultants that were blank, which is really nice as well. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'll clean up a couple other things. I don't think I need a title on my X and Y axis. I'll take that off. I'll just turn off the title on the Y axis, turn off the title on the X axis. Okay. But as I'm looking at this, again, I know my data set pretty well, which is hopefully the situation for you when you're working with data. Not always, but hopefully you know enough about it. This is looking funny to me. This looks like so many clients to have at once. Our business is not quite this big, so I'm wondering why so many clients are showing up on this list. I might even look back at my Smartsheet data set. It shows up pretty quickly when I look back at my Smartsheet data set. As I'm scrolling down, I have formatted the projects that are complete to show up in gray in Smartsheet, and I realize that's the issue. I'm showing all projects ever done, even the ones that have been complete in the past. And that's not actually what I want to show for this visual. I would like to show what my consultants are currently working on, open projects. So I realize if that's reflecting it, then all of my visuals right now are showing all the data for every project that's ever been completed. So this is one of your decision points. There's a couple things you could do. You could set a filter in Power BI to filter all the data on this page, or you could actually make a report in Smartsheet and filter from there. So let's take a look at how we do each one of those options. It really depends on what you're planning to do with the data long term, how you think you're going to use it, which of these options is the best. They both are relatively easy to do and easy to work with, so I don't really have a preference either way. Since I'm already in Power BI, it's nice to just go ahead and do it here. So if I want to filter all the data on this page, I have this option here, filter on this page. And you'll see down here, we're not going to talk about this today, but you actually have the option to filter on all pages. If you create multiple tabs down here, you can set a filter for all of them as well. But I would like to filter by status, the status of the projects on this page. And I'll start again, I'll select all and just unselect the ones I don't want. I don't want ones that are blank because I'm not sure what those are. I'll go back and check later. I don't want those that are canceled. I don't want projects that have been completed in the past. I don't want ones that haven't been signed. For this business, that means they're not actually in progress yet. But I do want the rest of these statuses, even the ones that are on hold. That's helpful for me to know. And you probably could see the visuals adjusting behind me on all of the charts. So I'm going to lock this filter since I've got it set how I want. Now I get a list that makes a little more sense. This makes sense. I've got this more limited list of current clients on open projects and the consultant hours for current open projects. The other way you could have done this, rather than setting a filter at the page level, is actually to come back into Smartsheet itself and change your data source a bit. If I wanted to, from my project intake list, rather than, let me move my face real quick, I could do a report in Smartsheet, which I already went ahead and made. I made a Smartsheet report. I'm not going to talk today much about how you make Smartsheet reports, but we've got lots of other videos on our Echo channel if you'd like some tips on creating reports in Smartsheet. But this is a pretty simple report. The main criteria that I've done, I'm pulling in my data from my project list. I'm just going to filter it by that same idea, where the status is not one of blank, complete, not signed, canceled, and the rest we can include. Similar filter. It even kind of looks the same the way you check stuff off. So I get this filtered. The change I would need to make is that this would be my data source in Power BI rather than that original sheet. And that is possible to do. I'll show you quickly how to do it. This is sort of an advanced functionality that took me a little while to get the hang of. But the way we're going to do this is actually come to my table here, back in Power BI, say Edit Query, and that's opening up in a separate window for me. I'll drag it over. And this is Power Query. This is showing you the view of the data as it comes in. There's a lot of other ways you can transform and work with your data from Power Query before you load it back into Power BI. But one of the things you can do is take a look at the steps. This is that same data table that we've been working with, the project intake list. I can come back here. If I click on the source, I can see it's coming from a Smartsheet table. It's telling you where it came from. And then navigation is actually getting you to the specific data source in Smartsheet. So if I come to navigation and click on my settings wheel here, it's showing me, you may remember from previous videos, this view of Smartsheet and possible data sources in Smartsheet. Right now, it's the demo project intake list. I am going to switch it to my report, which is called, as soon as I can find it. I'm actually not seeing it, but I think I know why. This has perhaps not been refreshed since I created that report. So that's one thing. If you're looking for something you can't find in Power BI, you might need to manually refresh it. So I just clicked on Refresh Preview. Let's try again and see what comes up. And it's refreshing that as well. Do you see now we've got Demo Open Projects. This is the report I was looking for. So I click on this and click OK. And now I have my data source with very similar things in it, but it has already been filtered. You can use that report as it is as a data source from Smartsheet. I'm going to take out these steps just because I don't need to change the type of column at all, and then close and apply. I'm not going to actually go through all the changes for that right now, but I just wanted to show you how it's possible to, we can do a more detailed video about that in the future, maybe, is switching data sources in Power BI and the things you need to look out for. But that is possible. You do your filtering on a Smartsheet report and use that as your data source versus filtering on a whole page the way I am doing in Power BI. Great. So either way, we end up with a view like this where everything is filtered by projects that are open, not closed, not canceled, etc. And there's another nice option. We've talked about the dynamic filtering where you can click on a piece of a visual and everything else gets filtered dynamically. We've looked at these visuals, which I think of as more manual visuals that are set when you're creating the report. You filter on a visual and you, the creator, is choosing the filter, not your viewer, your downstream viewer down the road. It's the creator of the report that's setting these filters, and they can be locked. Another way that you could filter in Power BI is with a slicer. And this is actually another visual tool, and a slicer comes in handy when there's something you want to be able to filter the data by, but you don't necessarily need a whole visual on it. You don't need a whole chart on it. In this case, one that I thought of that I know about this data set is it also categorizes things by project type. It's essentially like, from a consulting side, is this a support contract? Is this a staff aug contract? That kind of thing. I don't care about showing a chart about this right now, but it would be nice to be able to still include it in the visual. So I'm going to click on my visualizations and add this one, which is a slicer. I'll bring it up here and use the right field for this. And you can see now I get these options. Let me just format it a little bit. It just happens to be called project name, but that's our types of projects. I want to turn on the title. I'm going to call this filter by type. And on the visual itself, I'm going to turn on, let's see, where is it? I want to turn off that header. Sorry, sometimes it takes a second to find the other things. Position, heading. Oh, there it is, sorry, under visual. Okay, so we're filtering by type. We've got our title. I didn't copy and paste this time, so I've got to reset my background color for my title. But now I have a slicer, if I close all these up, and I can actually just click and get a fully filtered view just on the thing that I select. It's not actually filtering the data, it's not baked into the view the way this filters pane is. But for the purposes of this visual, it's going to filter everything. So I'm only showing what are called Kickstart projects on these visuals. I'm only showing staff aug projects. And let me add here so you can see a little better how it's adjusting. On these bars, I would like to see my data labels so that I can see the numbers. I'll make them inside center, and while I'm at it, I'm going to make it a little darker. Okay, so now I can see for staff aug, I've got this list of consultants working on staff aug projects. This is the proportion of hours they're each doing, and here's the hours per client for this type of project, which is a pretty cool feature. So you can just click around, and this will be interactive for anybody viewing this dashboard as well, that you can click on these and get the adjusted visuals, including all these numbers getting adjusted. I would like to include the option on the under the visual and the selection that I can select all, so that you can easily just select all again. If you select all, or if none are selected, then it's going to go back to showing everything on your visual. And there's a few other options. I'd like to be able to multi-select just by clicking so that I can show Kickstart and support. So we've talked about different ways that you can filter, both in Power BI and in Smartsheet, and ways to bring it into your Power BI views. There's a lot of options, and they're useful in different ways, just depending on what you think you want to do with your data set and what the audience is and how much you want the audience interacting with the view that you're showing. We've talked a lot already about the dynamic filtering, which is just can be done by clicking on visuals, and it's going to highlight certain pieces of your visuals based on what you click. We've also talked about these baked-in filters, which are made by the person creating or editing the actual Power BI report or the Power BI file in Power BI Desktop. That's where you have to be in order to add these. You can do it at the visual level, you can do it at the page level, as we talked about today, and you can even do it on all pages if you have a report with multiple tabs. You can also use a tool like a slicer, which enables that interactivity again, and looks more like a filtered view that hides the things that you're not filtering, which can be very nice for your audience. And this is something that can be used even on a published, most protected version of your view. When you actually publish it out on a web link, you can still use the slicer view. We also talked about how you can use a filtered report in Smartsheet as your data source. So that's another way that you can essentially filter your data, is by just filtering it first in Smartsheet and then using that report as your data source. Sometimes that is useful because you may have a bunch of data sets that you're working with in in Smartsheet. As you may know, in Smartsheet, you can do reports based on a number of different tables or sheets. You can do reports based on a huge set of tables or sheets, especially if you're pulling from an entire workspace. So it may be more efficient or more useful for you to do that kind of report where you're filtering first and then bring that into Power BI to do your visuals. Lots of options there. The last thing I do want to show is just following up the workflow on publishing and give you a little teaser on how you can actually bring this kind of visual back into Smartsheet. So if I've got this dashboard, I like it, feel happy with that, I'm going to save my changes. I'm going to choose to publish it in my workspace. This is publishing it in your Power BI online workspace. If you're just working in desktop, you're working with essentially a static Power BI file that is saved somewhere, you know, on your desktop or your shared drive or wherever. Once you publish it, you've got an online version that will refresh as you prompt it to refresh, or you've set a refresh schedule or something like that. So there's a little bit of a difference between where you're working with these files. But again, I've got my visual here. Looking good. I can see some filters, but now since I have locked the filter back in the file, a person coming from this view, coming from the Power BI online, can't affect this filter. In a previous video, if this filter is unlocked, then someone could filter from here if they were looking at this view. So again, just some good options on how to do that. And then just to show again, my slicer still works nicely here. A good tip to remind people is sometimes if you're looking at a view like this and you're not quite seeing the data that you expect to see, is just double check your slicer. Sometimes people select something without realizing it or don't realize that it needs to be cleared. If you do select something, you need to go back and either select it all or unselect it all to see the full data set again. And then our last step is actually to publish this to something like a web version so that you can share that out even more easily. It's even less options for people when they're looking at it. I'm going to go ahead and set this. This report actually does have 2 tabs on it that I created. I'm going to set the, you can't see with my face, set the default page as this current view of the project. So this is what's going to show up first. Now I have an HTML you can paste into a website. I'm going to copy that. So it's copied my link. And then coming back to Smartsheet, the nice thing is now I have a dashboard that I created in Smartsheet. I can actually embed my Power BI view in here. If I do a Smartsheet dashboard, do my web content widget and add content, and save, let me expand it a little bit. That same published view can actually be available in a Smartsheet dashboard. Yep. Let me try to refresh again. Sometimes it lags just a bit. There we go. So now I have a Smartsheet dashboard, and I've actually got my whole Power BI view embedded here with the same kind of interactivity where I can click on things, I can do my slicers from the Smartsheet view. That's just a little bit of a teaser. I'll do a future video on this linkage back to Smartsheet on dashboards, because there's a couple different options depending on the kind of access you want people to have and how to share out and security and that kind of thing. But thanks for watching. We've talked about filters and slicers in Power BI and Smartsheet and how to get some Power BI content back into a Smartsheet dashboard. Again, I'm Caroline. Thanks for watching. Bye.